Welcome to our meeting under a new procedural process. We'll be having all our meetings at 9 a.m. rather than this one starting at 8 because we need to accommodate some other meetings that are coming up later in the morning. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the First Nations and has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, I acknowledge the history, spirituality, culture, territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the Three Fires, known as the Ojibwe, Potawatomi Nation, and further give thanks to the Chippewas Saugeen, Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this area, as well as the contributions of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous people whose ancestors shared these lands and waters. May we live with respect for each other on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Miigwech. I could have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Carol? Seconder? Mary? All in favor? Any declaration of conflict of interest arising out of the minutes and matters listed on the agenda? Hearing none. Did have a note here for a promotion for Sergeant Olivetti. I guess it's too early for him. He's not in yet.
He's I don't think he's in today, is he? I believe so.
That's fine. I just want to make sure we're.
But no, he missed the other, and then we sent him on a course last month.
Yeah, he's not in today.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Yeah. 2-4.
So we haven't forgotten him.
Oh.
Confirmation of the minutes of the public session held November 27th, 2025. A motion for that, Mary? Thank you. Brian?
Sure.
Thank you. All in favor? Any business arising out of the public session minutes of November 27th? Hearing none. Okay. Items, correspondence received. I don't have any correspondence for this meeting. Under chairman's report, the only thing I've got is Craig and I met with the mayor on December 2nd to discuss our proposed budget. And last Wednesday, December 9th, there was its own meeting via Zoom. I don't know if there's anybody here in the room that can attend that. There was a reasonably large crowd, and given the weather, it was probably a good thing it was by Zoom. Moving on to 10, governance. I don't have anything at this time. And I know Hank doesn't because he's in vacation. So moving on to December monthly reports. Start off with item A.
All right, so the first report is criminal investigations branch. A couple things to highlight. The detective office investigated an internal theft from a local grocery store to a value of $65,000, stolen by a manager. The officers were able to recover some of those funds. However, some of them were spent in addiction. So that person has been charged and is before the courts at this time. So a fairly significant theft from a local business. Also, we helped the London Police Service execute a search warrant in relation to a person who was charged down in London during an anti-war protest. They've read a little bit of that media, but there was no Owen Sound connection. In that, one of the main people charged resides in Owen Sound. So they wanted to do a search warrant for some evidence done without incident. They've been keeping themselves busy, search warrants to close off previous and current investigations. Some other highlights for the month. Another month of no suspected drug overdoses, which is nice. And we don't have any current missing persons that we're investigating. The bail compliance and warrant apprehension unit, there's some statistics there. We spent a lot of time doing compliance checks this month on sex offenders and persons released on bail. See the stuff there. Hopefully we'll talk about the staffing situation, but there's a member of that unit who's been away on parental leave, and they've returned to work in December. So see some activity from The core unit, they're focusing on, or trying their best to focus on foot patrols and increased presence in the river district. As well as assisting in community events and backfilling for patrol. One item of note for them, the Saugeen Shores Corvette Club dropped off a number of gift cards to the station for distribution. So the core unit partnered with the Salvation Army and distributed several gift cards to needy people in the community. They also received gift cards from Giant Tiger and Walmart, and alongside Salvation Army, they combined those funds and purchased Christmas for youths that they deemed to be not able to receive Christmas gifts this year. So that was a very kind donation from the Corvette Club, Saugeen Shores. They did the same thing, obviously, over in Saugeen Shores, which is well received. Moving on to the auxiliary report. The total number of hours volunteer time for the month was 243. Some highlights, they provided a lot of assistance in helping us make sure that the Santa Claus Parade was a successful event, as well as the Remembrance Day Parade and ceremony. Also, on November 22nd, we had the Pass the Hat night at the Attack game, which was predominantly staffed by volunteers from our auxiliary unit. And I just have that bolded there that they raised $4,932 from passing the bucket around Attack game, which is basic granny said that it was the highest since COVID. So that's a good sign. There was actually a intended being 2 hour back. So that worked out really well. And also the last thing for the auxiliaries that they want to mention, or that I should mention, is that they did a successful food drive at Metro, raised $1,800 in cash and 932 pounds of food, so, which is some good results there as well. Frontline patrol and collisions. Some statistics there. Point out a few things. We continue to have to staff the court with security, as we've mentioned several times before, but you can see there's 198 hours that our part-time members were removed from the road, which is a recurring theme, as you're well aware. Criminal code charges were fairly consistent year over year. The Highway Traffic Act charges are down. You notice in the top line there, which I think is a product of having less support on the road from part-time members. So it'll be something to watch. Paired driving, rides conducted. There were 5 on-duty rides conducted in November. And also we participated in the kickoff of the Grey Bruce festive ride with several area police services on November 27th. They did a ride in 3 locations in Grey Bruce and stopped over 500 drivers, and there were no impaired drivers, which is excellent. So for ride, a total of 554 drivers were checked in the month. Collision, again, remarkably consistent month over month and year over year. Not too much to highlight there. That sticks out. First, the community service officer report, a list of items that our community service officer engaged with on social media and tried to spread information about on social media. And there's a long list of presentations, committee work, and other things that he's been doing this month, including participation in the Santa Claus Parade, Pass the Hat, and lots of school presentations. Scroll down. This report is the training report. Some officers completed some training courses as listed there. The one to highlight, we hosted a violence threat risk assessment training, the level 2 at in Owen Sound, which we funded using our hate crime grant. You can see that 60 persons from various services, including police, Bright Shorts Hospital, and Bay Mental Health Association, Victim Services, all attended for risk assessment training. A good opportunity for everyone to get that training locally using our grant funding. And those are my reports. Any questions or?
The training that you just spoke about there, is that something normal that would happen at some of the other stations? Services from outside, or is that sort of unique for Old Sound?
I don't know the answer to that, Chief. Do you know if other services have hosted that training?
Which one, the feature training?
Yeah.
No, the school board hosted it a number of times. I don't know of any other police services that have hosted it, but it's so it's risk assessment training. And it's, it's so that everybody's on the same page, so if there's an incident at a school. And everybody, they both in the same, everybody understands what it means, let's say you're in place and all the different things. And it was funded through the grant, I think we're the only food service that's hosted it.
Yeah, so it's sort of an additional community service that police services provide. Not only the hospital, but also other services as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's so that if something happens, something major happens, everybody understands
Page.
when they're on the same page, so. But it isn't something that would normally be done.
Interestingly, the week after the training, there was an incident at a high school and they, all the agencies collaborated and it worked out really well, so.
Everybody thought it was a drill.
But they may have, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it was timely in that way.
Okay, great. Thanks, Inspector. Moving on to reports from Director of Civil Services.
No.
Oh,
Thank you, Chair.
I thought you just did.
I think we're gonna go to lost hours.
Oh, I'm sorry.
first, if that's okay.
Yep, it's perfectly all right. Lost my page.
So we had a 20% reduction in lost hours due to member sick leave in November 2025 or to October. There was a slight increase of 2% in year-to-date lost hours due to member sick leave in 25 compared to 24. We did have several members off on extended medical leaves that contributed to the slight increase. No lost hours attributed to WSIB claims in October and November 2025. And there was a 51.6% year-to-date reduction in lost hours due to WSIB claims in 2025 compared to 2024, which is a substantial reduction. So we still have one WSIB case involving a full-time member that's pending final resolution. However, that member is not receiving top-up amounts or benefits. We have two part-time staff off on medical leave relating to personal injuries. We expected one to return this month. That didn't happen, so both of them remain off this time.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Now we can move on to read.
Yes. From Director Flooney. So bulk record check searches again, 4% decrease this month. We've kind of had this trend over the past 2 to 3 months. Again, this is subject to our third-party vendors making those requests from us, and it's, you know, we're really based on what it is that they provide to us. It has resulted in an annual change of -8.3 searches. Executed warrants and persons charged are down this month. As Craig had mentioned, we had a member off on paternity leave. He just returned yesterday. He's our BCWA officer, so we expect to see those numbers start to increase. Plus, we've been doing some overtime shifts with the uniform officers to focus on executing warrants and persons charged. As we've mentioned in previous meetings, we do have 7 armed officers scheduled to work at the courts each month to provide security. In addition to our special constables. This past month, we had a 5.8% reduction in, which is a bit of an increase, or a bit of a benefit to us there. There are multiple Superior Court and custody trial matters, which have increased the special constable hours. One of those matters being a walk-in court in custody judge and jury matter. And there's also 2 additional walk-in court and custody judge and jury matters set to start in the Owen Sound Courthouse in December and January. So we're getting quite busy in our courts. We did have one bylaw incident. There was a taxi company that was cautioned regarding the offering of fare discounts and flyer distributions. This is a contravention of the Owen Sound Police Service Board Private Transportation Company bylaw.
Just a point on that, so those cases that were basically babysitting for Walker, that was just thrown at us. We didn't have a choice whether to accept it or not. So it was just additional costs given to the city and police service. Now, is there any, do they support us with any costs or reimbursement of costs or anything like
The
that?
chief speaking about it.
So no, there's the one matter came over here because it's a court security now, and the building and the facility is inadequate to manage it. Well, previously there was one of the individuals need some assistance, AOTA assistance, and that came over here for that reason. Now the next one's come over because the security at the building up the park. So it's been brought over here. The third matter, it generally came out of our work here, and the arrest took place over in Bruce County, the drug matter. So we followed them over. That one I'm not as concerned about because it was really our case that brought it. But the other two are upsetting because it's a matter of the lack of investment in a proper facility in Bruce County then costs the taxpayer of Owen Sound or Grey County money to rectify that problem.
So Bruce County is just transferring their court costs to us.
I'm going to send it. And I'm not going to be very popular, but it's going to raise some eyebrows. And I sent a message before it happened to the Attorney General. I actually spoke to the Attorney General in person at an event. Cornered him. Yeah, he said I'd like to talk to anybody about anything. So I don't know if he really wanted to talk to me about it, but he did speak about it at an event in London I was at, and asked me to send an email. I sent their staff, send it back saying court security falls under the CSPA, and you should speak to the Solicitor General if you have an issue. And then a member of the Solicitor General's office said, I don't know if they even read your email because it was pretty clear it's not a matter of that falls to the Solicitor General side, it's a matter that falls to the Attorney General side. So I will be sending them back and say, here's what it total that it cost us. How does that matter? It's gone to the jury, and the jury's now convicted. There's one more appearance for the sentencing, and we'll be sending it out. Stay tuned. The other thing I wanted to point out in the report, and just for those that are listening, online maybe more than anything, they was talking about overtime shifts for BCWA. Just to be clear, that doesn't cost the taxpayer any money. That's a grant funded position. That's a use it or lose it, the grant money. And so that doesn't cost it's grant funded money that if we don't offer those shifts and use that money, it goes back to the government. Gotcha. And in this we will send officers out to make arrests on warrants. And there are lots of warrants outstanding.
Sure.
A question, two questions through you, Chad. So will you be communicating to the warden of Bruce County as well? You had indicated you'd be sending a letter, but I'm wondering if that would be advantageous.
So court security in Bruce County is similar to Grey County, where well, it's not that similar. It falls to the municipality of Brockton.
Yeah.
Just like it would to the city of Owen Sound. I don't believe they have an agreement in place with their county, that's the county level, to offset those costs from the municipality. So it's going to get sent to the Ministry of the Attorney General, asking them before the municipality of Brockton. So I've spoken to Christine McDonald over in Bruce County to say this is a concern, and just a heads up, I'm gonna send this through, and it may come back to you because you're in charge of the building, but just to let you know about it. So.
Okay. So my other question was in relation to, there's now a change in our staffing at the courthouse where there are 7 armed officers scheduled per week. That's a different staffing pattern now.
Since August the 8th.
Okay, so I know that the police services is excellent at statistics and statistical analysis. It would be helpful to have an impact analysis on an ongoing basis of the costs because of this change. And the impact analysis would be both in the HR staffing, but also in the community impact, because there is an impact when those officers are assigned to the court. I mean, we're already seeing the impact with the statistics, and I think should there be opportunities to request funding or some sort of consideration, having both of that documented in a trail around impact analysis would be very, very helpful. Could we have consideration for that?
Yeah. I think our budget reflects that because of the percentage increase. It's not for, well, it is for new staff, but it's because of staff requirements that's been imposed on us.
Yes. So the other part of that, and I 100% agree, but being able to actually specifically track per month what the costing is. But then we've already heard today that because our resources are assigned, there are certain things that are not being perhaps as fulsomely able to be addressed, and we're seeing it in a variety of ways. And I'm wondering, that's the community impact. That isn't necessarily dollars and cents, but it is an impact. And it's, we can't consider one without the other. So I just want to bring it forward because my experience has been in other organizations that unless we start to track it right from the get-go and have it as a statement, then when you need it, you're always scurrying to catch up and find the information. And we know that it's more than just HR dollars, staffing. There's a huge community impact when you have to pull your resources from one place to another. I mean, we're a system. We provide police services as a system.
So if I can answer that, the financial impacts track every dollar that goes into court security stuff.
Okay.
Then the money for the part-time officers who are up there, or a full-time officer has to fill in to cover as a result of the changes to the staffing model is tracked, and that's readily available on a monthly basis. The other side of it is really difficult to track because we're not in a business where we don't get to things or we don't do things. All the calls, those part-time officers assist on a day shift when it's busy on lower priority calls for service. They still get handled. They still get looked after. It's how long they might last, how long they might wait. And there's a lot of factors that can do that, both staffing levels, calls for service levels, everything varies. So I don't know that you could do a direct comparison to that. And then similarly, the fact that they're not out doing traffic enforcement or they're not out doing school zone enforcement. It's difficult to say we didn't do X or we didn't do Y because we never actually, we don't measure what we don't do, we measure what we do.
Okay. Thank you.
So that would be difficult. I'm not sure if there's anything on the table that, like, how we could measure some of those impacts. I mean, I think you see it on a monthly basis when you get the reports and you see that, the foot patrol hours are down.
Agreed.
You can see that the calls for service, they handle it down. Because we track how many calls our part-time officers handle. So there's a number of those metrics that are there that we can put together, and they're readily available and they're captured now. It's not something we don't capture, but the total impact, like the visibility and the foot patrol hours, the impact of that and the impact of not having, to assist the front line, increased workload and burden on the officers that are working the front line. That's what they're there for, and we haven't had them since August.
And statistically, you indicate you have the information, like the change in foot patrol hours. And that's the type of fulsome information that would be required. Because there is a huge impact. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great.
Thank you, Chair.
Good.
Moving on to an update from our communication center. As mentioned, we transitioned over to Next Generation 911, November 25th. Was very successful. This is a significant milestone for police service and our commitment to strengthening public safety and emergency response. These enhanced features will allow us more accurate caller location and phone number information, enhanced cybersecurity with added backup capabilities and system reliability, and a future ability to support real-time text messaging and other digital technologies that they come into effect. Regarding our dispatch events, the average daily dispatch rate for all services dispatched by our communication center in November dropped to 175 calls per day from its peak in the summer of 221 calls per day. This decline, as mentioned in previous meetings, is expected due to seasonal changes in our population decreasing over that period. Our year-to-date stats show that there was a 4% increase in the average daily dispatch rate, and our average daily dispatch rate is up 1%. So we are seeing more calls for service on an annual basis.
Any questions from you? Just a quick question. So we have a total number of calls dispatched. How many, do we track on how many of those are just for Owen Sound Fire and Police?
Yes, there is a chart that actually breaks that down by each of the different services that we dispatch for.
Okay.
Just by aggregate numbers.
I guess
and
what
percentages.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that, okay, so we have a baseline of what we dispatch for Owen Sound Fire and Owen Sound Police. There's additional work that we do, and with that, we're able to do that by using excess capacity, because we're gonna have to have those people there anyways. So rather than have them sitting there doing nothing, we have that excess capacity that can be used to generate income, or offset some of the costs that are in that call center. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Right, thanks.
Just a quick update from our IT services as well. They did do saw upgrades in the emergency room at Bright Shores. They added some repeaters, which increased the functionality of our radio system for officers to be in contact with communications. So there's to be gaps when the officers attending the hospital and not being able to communicate with dispatch. That's been remedied now. So improvements in officer safety. The West Craig Police Station is slated to be completed in February 2026, and our IT staff will be involved in migrating hardware, software, and installing new computer environments for the new facility.
Any questions for Spectre? All right, moving on to manager of HR.
Human resources update. We had Constable Grace Vokes, who's a former University of Guelph student, attend a Policing Pathways event being hosted by Guelph University. The outreach event was specifically designed for students in the criminal justice studies to attract them in consideration of a career in policing. We had excellent attendance, and Constable Vokes represented our service exceptionally well. So we're looking to add that on an annual basis to attend. It's an outreach event. We did interview an experienced constable from the East Coast who's considering relocating to Ontario for family reasons. We're just waiting to see if we get a commitment from her in terms of application, and then we'll commence the recruitment process with her. We also have a constable from England that is relocating to Owen Sound, and she's also expressed interest in joining our service. So just wait again for an update from her as to when that's going to take place and commence the recruitment process. We're really trying to focus with our 34 initiative on attracting women to our police service. So Wendy Pratt, as well as our social media consultant, we're putting together mini information sessions, mini outreach sessions that are particularly for women specifically, and it's to create a more intimate environment where there can be more engagement and discussion about the opportunities available to women in policing in terms of different positions as well as advancement. So those are going to be starting up this month, and we're looking forward to seeing on that.
Right.
So what's the goal there? Like, what are we at now? 30% women?
We're just
Mid-20s,
yeah.
somewhere around there.
we're mid-20s, or probably a little bit higher than most services, but the way they calculate it's all sworn officers, so our part-time officers count against that. Which is for the 34-week pledge, so it actually drops our numbers slightly because it adds in the five experienced part-time officers that are all retired officers. They're all male, so otherwise we'd be looking at probably one higher and we'd be at 30 pledge, but because of the way they calculate it, it's a little bit different.
So other police forces are what is the number then?
Most are in the 20s, 25, it'll be maybe high, like we're on the high end
Okay.
here, hopefully.
Yeah.
Do we have a recruitment strategy that incorporates incentives to bring people here? Relocation bonuses, incentives to others. Some organizations do. Has that ever been considered?
So we don't have any incentives to bring people here. That several services have used financial incentives, relocation, signing bonuses, those types of things. They find that it doesn't, some of them were successful with it, some of them weren't. Some of the northern services are offering it, trying to get people to move north. A lot of times they'll stick around just long enough for the term that they need to, and then get on. Help build the organization. I'd rather stick to what we're doing and find the right people that want to be here for the right reasons. And we get to a point where we need something else, and we'll have to look at that. But at this point, although slow, we're adding really good quality people.
And the 30% women, who established that benchmark? How was that established?
So it's actually established by science, and looking at it's basically looking at that tipping point where with 30%, then it takes out the it changes the culture at 30%,
Okay.
where there's more of an acceptance, there's less talk about other things, and it builds on that. So it's actually, there's science behind the 34-week campaign that says that 30% is the tipping point, where then it starts to increase exponentially, and people want to go to the organization because they feel that they're well represented, they're equally represented, they have a voice. It's when you're below the 30%, there's no voice, there might be other people like me, and it's not just for women, that's for minorities, that's for any type of demographic. The 30% is the tipping point.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Any other questions?
So for our next board meeting, I'll put together a more comprehensive and detailed summary on the 30 initiative, just so you have a better sense. We're just working on some internal messaging as well as external messaging for it, so that hasn't been finalized yet, but I'll provide that at the next meeting.
Okay, great, good. All right, moving on to financial updates, Chief.
So the financial updates for the 2025 budget are the same as last month. We are still kind of somewhat up in the air. The upcoming ratification of the outstanding staffing contract. There will be retroactive pay that has to be made on that. So the numbers they may look at one thing, but in those numbers that we don't have all calculated yet, it changes it. It puts it completely upside down. So those are factored into last month's estimate for you. So we'll be slightly over budget. I anticipate by the end of the year.
But we were only talking about 50,000, I think.
It was around that.
Yeah. So on a budget of close to $9 million, it barely moves the needle on a percentage basis. Thank you. Anything else on the financial update?
Of 2025.
Moving on to operating reports.
Yeah, so just to highlight a couple of things on my monthly report. Spent some time at the OSPSB Board of Directors meeting on behalf of our zone representative, our zone director couldn't attend. I'll also point out the new Carleton University, we're looking at doing a research project with Carleton University. Excited about doing a second one and bringing them back to Owen Sound again. The last one, the results just came out in the spring, looking at barriers to people using services down in the downtown. So it was good to start that relationship, and now they've got a real interest in working with smaller communities, because they find that there's very little support and evidence of research being done within smaller communities. The OCP CEO day where we spoke about a number of things, including recharge consultation and the courts backlog, and spent some time showing meetings for the Information Communication and Technology Committee for CAC.
Moving on to other items in business, item A, 2026 budget.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we spoke in budget at 7.29, no, 7.49.
7.49.
7.49%. So since that time, and I'll pass these down. Sorry. So since that time, there's been some a bit more accurate numbers come in for next year. As a result of we were using estimates for a number of items. So since that time, some discussions around the contract specifically. Training our officers, result of the health response training. Just a little bit more accuracy, and the number now is 7.23%. The majority of that is from staffing and the accurate numbers.
So do we have to keep this up? Do we have to keep changing it? Or can we just set our, whatever our budget is? Like who's to say that it's gonna change again?
I can tell you that the budget being 90% salaries and benefits. So ceiling stuff.
All yours.
Right.
Do you think I wasn't sitting there today? That was your chair, Brian.
Yikes. I'm supposed to sit there?
Sorry about that.
We're waiting for the ceiling.
I stick down there on that one.
Oh, sorry. So being the fact that it's the middle of December, but the fact the budget's not almost or 90% salaries and benefits. The numbers that are affected are now set in stone for next year. So I think it's an accurate description. Without changing that, to change that number again now would affect the delivery and adequate effective policing services.
So two questions. There's a significant increase in the civilian department 3,200. Can you speak to that increase in rationale? And then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, so some of it was the last few years, we looked back on our budgeting. And we've under budgeted in several areas in the last few years, and when you look at the actuals to the budget estimate, we were hoping that we would get staffing levels up and we wouldn't be training as much, and it just seems that it's a rolling cost, and each year we're thinking, well, we're getting there, and really we're not. So that more accurately reflects what our true costs are. And it also factors in the training for those new employees that we had never factored in before. That we absorbed internally, that we just can't continue to absorb internally.
So what you're saying is this reflects a more accurate budget capturing of the real situation. Okay. My other question then is, we have direction from the strong mayor power on what the expectation is, and it's different than what you're presenting. So can you advise on next steps, please?
So that's a board decision. As I explained, that is my presentation to the board, saying this is where we sit as far as the adequate and effective policing. If the board's direction is to go to the strong marriage power at 5.5%, it makes a bit of a difference of about $160,000 in salaries. With the including the benefits, and that there's no way of doing that without the section 40 hearing to lay people off. That's former section 40. I don't know what the new one is. But then and even to defer hiring the hiring that we're looking at doing is it doesn't offset the amount by that much because. There's individuals going to courts every day, and that part of it is offset by funding from the county to cover the court security costs, so even if we said we won't hire until next January. Doesn't make that much of a difference because people coming in are at a lower rate. So, similarly, it doesn't meet our needs, and it doesn't meet our people, the services needs because. Oh, we looked at it and we've already deferred the hiring till the March class, for OPC. Because originally that was one of the reasons it was up 8 something, at the start was the hiring for January, and we weren't able to fill the hiring for January. But, and then it went to March. But you have to realize that if we were to say, okay, we'll defer in order to drop the budget, artificially drop the budget down to what we need it to be. It's still not gonna be the 5.5%, but if we defer until September, or December. That intake, the September intake. If you were to hire them, they're in college from September until the middle end of, well, the graduation's this Friday, so basically say the end of December with the holidays. Then they're 4 months with the coach officer. They may be in place next summer, working independently. If you defer to the end of the year, they're not in place for all of 2026 until the fall, and it's not like we can just go and make up the difference. So we don't have the resources to the luxury to defer it off as long as, in my opinion, that's what I'm presenting is this is the budget.
So, through you, Chair, what you're saying to us is that to provide adequate and effective policing, this is a budget you need for our community for policing services. Are you expecting a motion to support the budget as presented?
Eventually today, yes. One of the other things, just, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig. So our court costs went up about $500,000 because of the requirements that were imposed on us by the province. So if we look at $500,000 increase budget, and we're only $160,000 over. If we could take that $500,000 in income now, we would be way under the 5.5%. But it's a timing issue. Because we'll get the $500,000 back from the county. But it won't be, it's always paid a year in arrears.
No, it's this budget takes into account the revenue from the grant,
Oh, does it? Okay, sorry.
and it goes up by almost $300,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, the actual increase to courts, where you see the in your budget line, goes up by 39,000. The actual increase is about $300,000 more than that. Because it's offset from the grant
So,
or reimbursement, I guess, is a better situation.
on the $9 million budget, yeah, we're saying. Generally, 160,000, can't you find that? But what you're saying is that you've absorbed $500,000 extra within the budget process because of the increased costs. I mean, there comes a point where, again, going back to tipping point, what is the tipping point? And although, proportionately $100,000 out of a $9 million budget doesn't sound like a lot to find. But what you're saying is you have searched for every efficiency you can.
Absolutely.
And I think,
Sorry.
and I think putting an artificial cap 5.5 across everything isn't a way to do it. When we've got evidence-based budgeting here that says this is what we need in order to provide adequate and effective policing. I don't see how you can put a 5.5% cap on the other areas, other departments, and call it the same.
Plus, there are legislative requirements that are different and unique.
Very much so.
And the extra demands, of course, placed through security at court are extrinsic factors you have no control over.
Yeah, as well as the new contracts
Yeah.
agreements that have just been approved. Well, we ain't kissing there yet, but I know it's coming.
Thank you.
Can you give me a dollar value or a dollar difference between the 7.23 and the 7.49?
Paid. The old 7.49 sheets. I'll tell you exactly what that is. Isn't it about 20,000?
Or so that was fine.
Oh, there we go. So the actual dollar difference is 20. 24,000 roughly.
We have a $9 million budget, just so I'm clear. We have a $9 million budget. And you want to change the. You want to change our increase by $24,000 to satisfy who? Like, we've set the budget at 7.49. I don't. Like, I'll change it if that's what you want to do, but I don't know, it's not going to be received. Like, it's.
But I think the importance is
Are
the
we,
accuracy that's been needed.
are we showing that we're trying by changing it $24,000?
I would think so.
I'm not sure whether it's trying, I'm just saying now that I have more rather than estimates. Now that instead of estimates for 2026, now they're actuals, so. And that changed the salary numbers, but it also changed the training numbers because we have an actual cost now to the mandated training and you know, it was $15,000 more than what we had anticipated. So that was factored in as well, so it's just accuracy. It doesn't change the demands, and I think it's important to note that, you know, the information's there, the numbers haven't increased since 2014. Calls for service have doubled. The demands, the charges per ops, their charges, criminal charges laid have doubled. The crime severity index has probably doubled. All of those things, and it's always been, you know, keep the lights on, keep things going, and we can't continue to try and keep the lights on, keep things going with the staffing levels that we have, or it's going to affect our members more significantly than it does right now. And we are in a very good position across the province. At the you know, rates for occupational stress, those things, and I don't want to see that change. And similarly, if you look at the budgets across the province with the demands of the CSPA and the other things, I have about a 60-page document with articles from across the province on 2026 police budgets, and I've done a chart or a table at the bottom showing police budgets increases, what I can find for year over year, and we're significantly, even at 7.23%, we're less than the majority of. I would think there's only one or two that are less than us across the province.
So, I'm happy to move that then. I move that we revise the budget from 7.49 to 7.23.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but it is strong there. It decides. We're submitting something that we.
But there is a next step, right? So we can just talk about the next step.
So Craig and I are in the process of drafting a letter to go back to Ian based on the last email we got in the mayoral directive and addressing some of the points that he listed in that. And I guess the bottom line will be what we've been able to determine and budget for. This is the number we're coming back with. And I'm also going to point out that to impose an artificial cap is not a good way to do police budgeting. It may be good to do some of the other areas in the city, but with evidence-based budgeting on the police side, it's not, it doesn't give you a true picture.
Will that be shared with mayor and council or just directly to the mayor?
That could be
That
both.
is,
What's the board's wish?
I think that from my perspective, I would vote. As well, but this is about community safety and policing, and I think that all council, we represent the community, we should have the information.
Yeah,
Do you get that information from everywhere else? Like you don't have any control over the budget, right?
However,
You get a chance to veto the budget coming up.
make amendments, suggest amendments.
Well, that matters.
So we want to send to council?
yes, because I don't know how they're gonna see it otherwise.
Yeah. It's a new process, I'm not sure how the rollout works. Information is always important to share when it affects our community.
You copy the clerk, right?
I can't.
That's
And
part
Tim,
of the,
of course.
yeah.
City manager.
But the-
Usually the protocol is if it's copied to the clerk,
Yeah.
it gets copied to council.
We just ask
So
for it
you
to be
don't,
shared.
you don't address the letter to mayor and council.
Not when it's a strong mayor's budget.
How does the rest of council get to know though?
Uh,
Like, I want to eliminate the silos that we're currently operating in.
I think certainly asking the clerk to share it with mayor and council would be appropriate, and
Yeah.
should, that is our often way that it's
Mhm.
done, as long as we get the information that she usually backs it up.
Just ask her,
It's a
because
request.
so she may not.
Unless you
No.
ask for it.
She won't do it unless you ask for it. Particularly when it's a strong mayor's budget, because it's, right now it's between the mayor, the police board. Doesn't go any further if the mayor doesn't want it to. Unless you ask the clerk to circulate.
And obviously the board will get copied on it as well.
Because the last one didn't get shared.
That's why it's important for us to
The last one.
Which one?
share it with council.
Got shared with police board members. But not count.
Is this on the committee structure?
No. Did you send a budget letter already?
Not yet, no.
So it was your discussions.
Pardon me.
Details of those really wasn't shared.
I think it's just really important that we communicate to all elected representatives.
Oh, totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Like I know that there's. No, never mind. All right, anything else?
Can we vote
Yeah,
on that?
well, just, whether there's anything more relevant.
And this is different, but.
Oh, okay, sorry. So going back to the motion by Brian, second by Mary, that we submit the budget back to the mayor at 7.23%. Okay, all in favor? Right,
You might want to add in that motion. That it's requested to be circulated to all members of council.
okay. Rick Walker.
Okay, so this next document that I've handed out, this next piece of paper that I've handed out, there's an ask about the business lines for food service for the budget. Why are we doing it if we don't have anything that's work? So the first column says no revenue budget 2026, and then the budget 2026 beside it. So this strips out all revenue across the service, and you know, some people may say, well, does dispatch make money? Does records make money? Does that, you know what? You're either in business or you're out of business. The way I look at it, because one is key to the other, and you know, you might start dispatching somebody, and then you do some other work, and then that led to NG 911 money and all those other things. So that strips out all of the revenue across the service, other than the front party, the third party record checks, or sorry, the record checks for people walking in the community from the community. It takes out everything else. And it also takes out the FF staff that have been hired to do work outside of what would be required to provide police services for only the city of Owen Sound. So what that means is, and particularly I'll go to communications or I'll go to IT. It takes out the IT, the excess IT positions that wouldn't be here if we didn't provide services for other agencies. But it still provides the IT coverage for Owen Sound Police Service and the part-time staff to cover the holidays. Same with dispatch. We would still need 8 full-time dispatchers, so we have 2 on at all times just to handle the Owen Sound Police and Owen Sound Fire, and it takes out the revenue from Owen Sound Fire as well. But to do Owen Sound Police, we'd still need 8 dispatchers full-time, and we'd still need part-time hours to cover sickness, training, statutory holidays, annual leave, all those other items. Any other absences. So it takes all of that into account, and when you look at the end, the budget goes from 9,659,000 at 7.23% to 12,004,000. The variance I've underlined so it goes from 12 to 9.9 million zero, the budget 2025, because we stuck that column in. So unfortunately, the variance isn't right. I've written the proper variance. The actual savings by providing the work to other communities is $2,344,695, or if you want it to business, it would cost 24.3% more. At least the city.
And that doesn't include the penalties you'd have to pay to get.
I'm not even saying it's possible.
Yeah, well, and the other thing
I
too is,
don't imagine it actually would be possible.
there was a comment made that, well, why don't we just get out of the dispatch business? Have it go to St. Catharines. Like Bruce Fire did. Well, the problem with that is St. Catharines only does fire. There is no one else in the province of Ontario that does police.
Belleville does
Belleville,
small service up north.
very
There's
Deep River, yeah.
So if I'm understanding this information correctly, because, and the other question has been, why are we in the business of dispatch? So that's kind of the same thing. So by doing this business model, am I right in understanding that you're actually keeping the percentage of the requirement from the taxpayer to your budget down? So we're projecting 7.23. If the business model was not in place to still run all of the features of our current police services, we would need 33.6% increase. So actually, running a business model like this saves the taxpayers.
Yeah, so the variance is wrong with 33.26, it should be 24.3.
Okay,
approximately.
24.3, that's still significantly different from the 7.23% we're currently asking for, correct? That's an important point to recognize. We have to staff it anyways. By being innovative and doing a business model, there's a significant difference between 7.23 and 24.3% increase in what it might cost our taxpayer if we didn't run that business model. Thank you.
And I think it's been said too, is that all we're doing is we're using excess capacities. Because we've got to have the 8 people, the part-time people, everything else there. So rather than have them, I use the term loosely, sitting around doing nothing, they can be answering calls from other services and generating revenue that comes to us and goes back into the budget.
Thank you.
There's nobody gets paid to sit around and wait for the next thing to happen in this organization. We don't have time to cook our dinners. We don't have time to sleep at night. We don't have time to do the things that maybe some other services have time to do. Not police, but there's a difference in what we do.
Just a suggestion, but Carol, are you still doing the updates to council?
Mary and I are doing that, so Marion's, for this meeting, I'm for the meeting prior to, so we're doing
I would
alternate months.
suggest, you guys can do what you want, but I would suggest, like, this is a really good sheet.
We did the same thing last year. Don't know that, but I did the same thing last year. This was just over 2 million last year.
I think the preamble is absolutely critical. Explain what these numbers really mean. Sometimes it's that interpretive analysis as a preamble that really makes a difference, because as you discuss through it, it's very helpful to understand what it means if we don't have a business model.
So no, just to explain. It's cell block monitoring is something we added since I came, because there was no, and that was the first, it kept me up at night moment when I walked through the door here. When you mean there's nobody watching the prisoners and days and age of fentanyl. And you know, to the point where now we're going to biometric monitoring because of the risks and dangers involved. And so we had no cell block monitoring. We've never been provided a budget to properly do cell block monitoring. That is covered off through revenue that we have from the units while they're working at night. And so just right there is $250,000. Actually, more than that, it's yeah, it's about $250,000 in staffing costs that has never been passed along to anybody. That's been funded by those individuals doing something else, generating revenue while they're here working. And people, and so right off the bat, there's, you know, there's sort of about roughly 250,000.
And the risk to that is if they weren't being monitored, prisoners in the cells, and something happened, I'm not sure how big the loss it would be.
It's gonna be a 7-figure check, it's not gonna be a 6.
And that's where all the information you're sharing with us is that interpretive, what it truly means as a preamble to the information is so helpful.
This,
Making it understandable, making the figures understandable when the questions are being asked. And not just through the budget process, but the public as well. Thank you.
Anything else?
no, I think that's it.
Any other questions before we move on? All right, moving on to health and safety. Building mold.
Yeah, so we had a mold issue that we identified, that our staff identified in a couple of locations throughout the building, and then health and safety walked through, and deputy and myself, a number of us, and found a number of locations throughout the building. And some of it's as a result of the HVAC systems, like you can see on the ceilings. Hopefully that tile doesn't fall. But you can see on the ceilings, you know, the sweating from the pipes, and well, there was a location that was black. The one room, they get changed when they get stained, probably once or twice a year. Dave?
More often in the summertime.
Yeah.
They're very expensive. Those tiles are about $20 a piece when they keep
So-
switching them out.
So they've been changing them, but the answer is, and when we saw the black on the wall down the cell block, no, they sprayed it and clean wiped it up. Question persisted, you know, is it safe? Is the HVAC system safe? Why is it happening throughout the building? So we went to the city and asked them to do some work. They did an investigation, they contracted out to this Gentleman Incorporated, and they've gone through and they've conducted an audit. They went through with our staff and city staff. And it was unfortunate that the number of locations had been cleaned up previously. So they weren't able to sample some of the more serious, the more serious location, they weren't able to sample. The tiles had been thrown out and then cleaned up previously. but of the ones that were left, there was mold. In the building, and you know, there was some, there was the moderate to abundant. The ceiling in the gymnasium, return airspace in the gym room. 10% of the ambient of the ambient outdoor level, so it wasn't that high, but that was one of the areas that had been cleaned up. So this report just provided guidelines on the fact that we need to move and we need to properly remedy the situation as opposed to just cleaning it up. And I wasn't here all last week, but I believe we're still waiting for proper remedial work to be completed.
But it has, I guess, the thing is, it's being addressed through the city. Eventually,
Yes.
it's better, I guess it's better than it was, where it was just allowed to continue to grow, literally.
It was isolated, one off, clean it up, wipe it up. Spray some mold killer, but nobody ever actually looked to see whether it was significant, whether it was serious, whether it was what type of mold it was, whether it was into the ductwork system. And, you know, spreading throughout the whole building, or whether it was isolated to certain locations. So this actually was a good thing to check and make sure that, you know, if and my fear was that they were gonna come back and say, everybody can't be in the building, how do we operate a police service in that respect? But fortunately, that didn't happen, and
And I think that did happen, so both of us. Man.
Another organization used to be working. It had a follow-up reevaluation after a period of time. Was anything discussed about around the effectiveness of the treatment and the remediation? It was, you know, some time after, but there was a plan for a reevaluation of samples.
guess we have to have it properly cleaned up before we can.
Agreed, but I
Look,
didn't know
evaluation,
that
but
was.
I think, you know, this time of year, it's not gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
Once the HVAC kicks in and the pipes start getting cooler, and whether or not they fixed it. I'm not confident it's been fixed properly.
Okay.
We'll wait and see. I mean, hopefully it does, and the pipes won't sweat so much next spring, but. And all the time I've been here, they've sweated and ruined the ceiling tiles, so I don't see that that's not gonna happen, but at some point. Once that happens, then we should start looking again and do some type of even ourselves, go through and examine and look and see. If there is anything at all, then we should be looking.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so I guess there's no use doing a follow-up report in January because the weather conditions won't have allowed it to grow back, but maybe June or something of next year.
We'll provide an update when when the remedial work actually gets completed. Put that on Tony's radar, please, over that. And when the remedial work gets completed, then we'll come back to council and advise, or to the board, tell them that at least it's been cleaned up. And done, and then look in the summer, see if we start putting traces of
Mold coming back.
mold or even new wet spots. And ideally, it would be nice to get all the ceiling tiles changed again, so that we start with fresh, and we know exactly what whether it's fresh and new, or whether it's just something we haven't noticed before.
All right, moving on to item C, cyber insurance.
So we done a fair amount of work on the cyber insurance with the city and our insurance renewal. One of the things, we have a lot of IT infrastructure here, and we have a lot of not vulnerability, but we have a lot of exposure. Excellent staff and policing isn't immune to cyber attacks, and so we look at different cyber insurance options, and recommending that we go with $5 million deductible. That's been provided as the highest, and our current is 2 million, looked at, what are our potential, and I can tell you, having been present at the presentation just last week, about the HDM or about the Kingston police cyber attack. The costs are massive, and getting people in and cover systems and all those different things. I think option 3 is our best bet. That was included in the budget. That was one of the other updates.
It is included.
When I said it wasn't all down, there was up and down. That's been added in as an increased cost in that budget.
So another $6,400. You mentioned Belleville, and there has been maybe 5 or 6, or sorry, Kingston. There's been a couple up north as well that have had huge cyber attacks, so it is a real threat. It's not just a one-off, there's other large police services.
And we get our IT group gets notifications, and they've cut off access from a number of different parts of the world, as the deputy is well aware, when he couldn't get emails when he was away from any internet cafes in Europe. So
Yeah, no, it's not gonna happen.
so they've really tightened down the access and for the parts of the world, and our staff are on top of it, but certainly it's a distinct possibility.
I know when there's received threats that could be, Rogers could be affected. I haven't been able to communicate with the chief because it just used me up.
So do you need a motion?
Yeah, do you know, I was gonna,
I was just bringing it forward for
Yes,
information,
yeah.
but certainly the board's in support, I'm sure.
I think we should, because it's an additional cost, but it also shows that we're trying to protect the service, the
I'll
IT.
move the motion.
And Carol? All in favor? Good. All right. So for those moving into closed sessions, but for those who are watching the meeting live on YouTube, the feed will reconnect upon the board returning to open session and reporting out of closed session and confidential closed. If anyone would like to view the remainder of the open session, they can watch the live stream on the Owen Sound Police Services Board YouTube channel later today, and the video recording of this meeting will also be posted on our webpage following the meeting. If I could have a motion to move in.
Can we do this other additional item that I would?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
At council meeting last night, the boards and committees report with recommendations in it to make changes was referred to each of these standing committees. And I was going to suggest that the police reiterate the notes that they made in their previous correspondence to the clerk regarding the board remaining at its existing length of term for the board member from the council. So that would mean the mayor with 4 years and the other council member 2 years.
And the community rep would be 4 years as well.
Whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just status quo.
Yes.
Also, I mentioned, I think earlier, we want to identify that I'm not aware of any other board in the city that actually has employees. So it's a difference from any of the other boards.
So just to clarify, and I absolutely support that. Would that letter be sent to the chairs of each of the committees and with the request that it be placed on the agenda or correspondence received?
It would be sent to the clerk requesting that they forward it to each of the committees.
Yes, yes. So
With
that
the
every,
report
yes. So that is very
of the
clear.
standing committees.
Yes,
And that's to all standing committees?
yes.
There are 3.
I'll just say standing committees and they will know. Stick to.
Wait.
Yes. They're being dealt with in January. Okay. You're going to.
Isn't there a gallery and advisory?
It is,
It's not a standing committee then.
but they've also added them in to review
Okay,
the recommendations.
okay, but Brianna will know that she says it is, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, any other ones that I missed? Before we move on.